The regular meeting of the Aurora City Council for Monday, July 11, 2022 is called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Here.
Councilmember Coombs.
Present.
Councilmember Gardner.
Here.
Councilmember Drinsky.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Marcano.
Present.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Murillo.
Present.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Here.
And Councilmember Zvonek.
Here.
There's a quorum.
Announcement for the call-in line.
City Council welcomes feedback from the public on both matters appearing on the agenda and during public invited to be heard. If you would like to speak and have not already spoken to an operator, please press star 3 for those watching on Channel 8. Call 855-695-3475 and press star 3 when connected. You will hear a prompt confirming you are in line to speak to an operator and then be able to continue listening to the meeting. When the operator comes on the line, please be ready to give them your name and agenda item you wish to speak on. Keep in mind you must press star 3 before the clerk reads the title of the item you wish to speak on. Finally, as a reminder, Council does not allow comments about any items on the agenda during public invited to be heard, and each speaker is allowed 3 minutes, and public invited to be heard is limited to 1 hour in total. Thank you.
El Consejo Municipal de la Ciudad de Aurora da la bienvenida a la opinión de sus habitantes y otros vecinos en asuntos comparecientes en la agenda y durante la invitación a la audiencia pública. Por favor, llame al número de teléfono 877-820-7831 y al conectarse ingrese el código 254610 seguido de la tecla de numeral. La operadora tomará su nombre y el asunto a presentar ante el Consejo y lo pondrá en espera. Las personas han de esperar el anuncio de la invitación a la audiencia pública o hasta que se les ceda el tiempo para tratar el tema específico en la agenda de hoy. Si usted está en fila, por favor espere. Finalmente recuerde que el Consejo no permite comentarios en ninguno de los asuntos en la agenda durante la invitación para escuchar al público. Gracias.
Please join me in a moment of silence for the senseless tragedy in Highland Park, Illinois. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion for the approval of the minutes from June 27, 2022.
Mayor, I move to approve the minutes.
It's been moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by
Mayor, second.
Seconded by Councilmember Lawson to approve the minutes from June 27, 2022. Call for the question.
Mary.
Oh, discussion.
Thank you. Just on reports, do we not get a full report of what we said? Because some of my comments were very condensed. I was just wondering if that is how we're moving forward.
We can elaborate more on the reports if you'd like us to. We can let the company know. But yeah, usually we just give a condensed synopsis of what council members said under their reports.
Okay. I would have liked a little bit more because I know I talked about the Accelerate trip and the CML, and it just mentioned that I went there, but not the details that I said during the report. So I don't know if, can we amend the minutes?
Let me ask a procedural question to the city attorney in that would Mayor Pro Tem Bergen need to offer a specific amendment to change the language, or can't she just just ask for instructions?
So she can ask for instructions on this part because council is actually going to agree to the minutes in just a minute here when you vote. So if you don't agree, then you wouldn't vote for the minutes and they'd correct them that way. So the instruction is appropriate.
And that doesn't require a second or anything?
No.
Very well. Okay. Proceed, please.
Okay, so can I get those changed for the minutes, or are you saying just moving forward, we'll look at adding more?
However you'd like us to move forward. If we can change these and moving forward, make sure they're more elaborate, or just moving forward, making sure they're more elaborate.
I mean, I would love to have these changed.
Okay.
Okay, is there objection?
Mayor Kaufman, it's no objection, but mine is the same way, and I did a little bit more descriptive
well.
on those trips, so I would like to also have a fuller
Okay.
context of what I stated.
Is there any objection?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs?
I don't have any objection either. I just want to make sure that, yeah, if that's for one council member, that it goes for all council members, that if one person is having the detail they provided included, that could be the case for everyone.
Yes, we'll make sure that that section of council reports is more detailed for every council member.
Okay,
So can I make a motion to table the minutes until the next meeting?
yes. I mean, I think that would be the appropriate move.
All right, so that's my motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Marcano to table the minutes until the next regular meeting of the Aurora City Council, giving staff the time to be able to add more detail. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question on the motion to table.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes yes.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously to table the June 27th meeting minutes until the next council meeting.
Very well. Item number 6A, Amazing Aurora Award, and that's Mayor Pro Tem Bergen. Not that she's not an amazing person, but I think she's going to recognize somebody else who's an amazing person.
Is this on? Daniel Goodwin, can you come up, please? How are you? Good. Why don't you come over here by me? Nice to meet you. So Daniel, I'm going to read the Amazing Auroran certificate for him. He does live in Ward 6, and I represent the Southeast Aurora. So I'm going to go ahead and read this for you. Ward 6's Daniel Goodwin, 14, is an exceptional athlete whose discipline and skill have earned him local, national, and even international competition medals in wrestling and mixed martial arts, including judo and jiu-jitsu. Training vigorously since he was 5 years old, Danny is now the Cherry Creek Middle School's district champion, the Colorado State Freestyle champion, and the Colorado State Greco-Roman champion, as well as the medal holder in several other events. As the only Coloradan to represent Team USA in the United States Fight League, he will compete in the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation World Champions in Abu Dhabi this August. Danny's discipline also extends to academia. He is a 4.0 student at Infinity Middle School and a National Junior Honor Society officer, and will advance his talents, knowledge, and skills at Cherokee Trail High School in the fall of 2022. Well done, Danny. You are truly an amazing Auroran. Do you want to say a few words? Because I know you're kind of like an international globetrotter. You've been all over the place.
I would like to thank and acknowledge Mayor Pro Tem Bergen and the members of the Aurora City Council for recognizing my accomplishments. It has been an honor to be recognized by the city for all of the hard work that I've put in and for my achievements. Second, I would like to thank my parents and my little brother for always supporting me and always pushing me to be the best I can be in all aspects of my life. They have always been there for me when I needed them and have never doubted my abilities throughout all of my sports and school. Next, I'd like to thank all of my coaches and training partners that have helped me learn and become better in everything that I do. My coaches have always helped me become a better person and drove me in the right direction to learn from my mistakes. My training partners have also helped me become a better person and a better athlete no matter what sport I am playing. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody who has helped me along my journey so far and the City Council members for presenting me with this award that I humbly accept. Thank you.
Very sweet.
And what's this big medal thing here? This belt?
This belt is from this year's national championships. This year was in California, and this is from my 88-pound division. I was the uncontested champ, so this is from this year's.
Wow, that's mighty awesome. Thank you again. Congratulations.
Public invited to be heard.
Mayor, we have one individual on the public call-in line to speak.
Please proceed.
Kate, it's your turn. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I am speaking about Rocky Mountain Prep. They're known as RMP. The principal discriminated against me during my employment, and when I stood up to her, made up a reason to fire me. She's withheld my last 2 paychecks, and because of that, I am now facing an eviction. In regards to their grievance procedure, I've been ignored all the way to the CEO. They've also communicated with employees in a way that have impacted them as being references. I don't know if they are even giving me a reference or if it's a positive one, because they will not respond. RMP has used HR to make threats to try and stop me from reaching out about references. They've used a lawyer to make threats about getting paid and doing the grievance process through the school. In addition to multiple illegal actions, there have been deliberate emotional abuse. I have, or maybe had, one close friend. On my last day, we were excited about finishing the school year together, maybe working together again, talking about hanging out and calls over the summer. Whatever they told her or threatened her with, she hasn't communicated with me at all, and it is grief and loss every day. I don't know if there's a way where she'll sit down and talk through things with me, or even if we're still friends. Eviction has been incredibly stressful. I earn money to pay my rent, and the fact that I can't is causing trauma. If I'm evicted, I'll have to surrender the only family that I have. They're also my emotional support animals for diagnosed anxiety from trauma. RMP is creating more of that and then impacting my ability to have support, both from my animals and from that friendship, isolating me from the ones that I love. CSI said Aurora regulates that school. And when I reached out to Aurora, they sent me right back to RMP. The principal actually responded to their email and said that they would, in fact, move forward with the grievance process and lied. Nobody has reached out or contacted me in any way. So I'm asking that RMP Fletcher, which is located in Aurora, be reviewed, and Juli Garcia Vicente, as she's clearly not fit to remain in a role where she can impact children and have control over someone's pay, as she's used it to cause both harm and to control someone else's life. And that is what I have on that.
Adoption of the, is there further public invited to be heard?
No.
Adoption of the agenda, item number 12A has been requested to be removed by the appellant. And so a motion for adoption of the agenda.
Mayor, motion to approve the agenda.
It's been moved by Councilman Gardner to approve the agenda with the exception of item number 12A. Am I correct in that? It's been moved by Councilmember Gardner, second by?
Zavonic.
Second by Councilmember Zavonic to approve the agenda with the exception of item number 12A. Discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the agenda as amended. With the call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes to adopt the agenda with item 12A removed.
Adoption of the consent calendar, item 9A through 9I. Motion?
Mayor?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Jawinski? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. A motion to approve 9A through 9I.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by
Jurenski.
Councilmember Jawinski to approve the consent calendar, items number 9A through 9I. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the consent calendar, items number 9A through 9I. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman?
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes to adopt the consent calendar.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 10A.
Item 10A is Resolution 2022-111, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council's support of implementing a photo speed enforcement one-year pilot program.
A presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Lieutenant Kerrigan Bennett with the Aurora Police Department Traffic Section. If we could pull up my presentation, please. Thank you. Next slide. Oh, thank you. This is last week's or last council's presentation. Do we have the new one? This is a continuation from the June 27th council meeting where we were asked some questions. We're going to load up our presentation for today. I'll get started while we're loading that up. So our one-year pilot project goal is to, first of all, figure out the efficacy of doing a photo speed enforcement project. There's a lot of variables and a lot of questions that we want to be able to answer. We can't really answer that without running a one-year pilot is our recommendation. So part one is to determine the efficacy of that program. And part two is by running that pilot, it will give us an opportunity to build a better RFP that we can go forward with. So if we decide, yes, this does address speeding, this does address neighborhood concerns, and we do want to move forward with this project, the second part of that is then we can use that time, that one-year time span, to build a better RFP and go out to bid with the right questions, and we'll understand better about how that process works. Nationwide best practice is a 30-day warning period at the implementation of any photo enforcement project, be that photo red light or photo speed enforcement. I have reached out to several other jurisdictions around the country that use various speed enforcement and also photo enforcement of various kinds projects, and they all use a 30-day warning period just as a nationwide practice. And feedback that I got was that driving behavior is directly impacted more by citations than it is by warnings. A few variables that go into whether or not this is cost neutral or how this will play out over the year, primarily on revenues. So the location mix. By state law, we're limited on how much a fee could be for a photo fine or for a photo violation. So a standard fine in a residential neighborhood would be $40 for the violation at a maximum, and the maximum for a school zone or work zone is $80. So part of the revenues from a photo enforcement process would be what's the mix of where are we getting these violations from. Another one would be the percentage of violators who pay on the first notice. So they receive their notice, they pay right away, versus those that have to be served versus those that have to go to collections. So that will vary how much money is recovered from those fines. The number of days and hours that vans are deployed. Our proposal would be for 3 vans. Where those vans are deployed, so again in those school zones, but how many days a week? Are they deployed 7 days a week? Are they deployed from say 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., or are they only deployed from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., depending on staffing and what our plan is. All of those will impact our revenues and the fines that we collect. The effectiveness of the program. So if the program is effective as it is supposed to be, we'll see fewer fines because people will stop speeding in those zones. So we'll see a decrease in the number of fines we receive over time. However, we don't expect that it would go to zero, as one would hope that it would go to zero. And then finally, the randomness of driving behavior. Although we can come up with some metrics that would say we anticipate certain things, and that's part of the pilot, is to say, here's where we anticipate to receive certain number of speeding violations in any particular zone at any particular day and time. We can't necessarily predict the traffic flow and how people are going to go, so that will affect things as well. Factors affecting costs, the personnel costs. So again, how many hours and days we're running the program. If we have three van operators, we want to run 7 days a week. We can't just run with 3 people. So we'd have to bring in more people. That'll cost us more money, so there are costs going out for that. The city would be responsible for the vehicle routine maintenance, so oil changes and things like that, and also the fuel for the vehicles. So we'd have to factor that in, depending, again, on how far they're being driven, how many hours they're being deployed, how long they're running. And then the big one is the fee to the vendor. The fee to the vendor in this particular case is it's a monthly fee for each vehicle, and we'll talk about that here in a second from what the vendor provided. And that will cover all the costs of the sending out the violations and the maintenance of the long-term maintenance of the vehicle, the cost of the vehicle itself. It's basically like a lease. And the equipment within, and they do all the paperwork processes behind. That's all covered in that monthly cost per vehicle. So the following 2 slides are provided by the vendor Conduit. Their original proposal was for a 13-month actual calendar time frame. That's a 1-month, 30-day warning period, followed by 12 months of enforcement. We do have an alternative based on the request for what happens if we do 90 days, a 90-day warning period. So that would be under that proposal, a 15-month period where we do 3 months of warning followed by 12 months of enforcement. And that 12 months of enforcement is so that we can collect good data on what happens when we actually do fines versus just pure warnings. So we get a good idea of the efficacy of this program. These are the slides provided by Conduit. So again, a 13 to 15-month pilot with the 30 to 90-day warning period. Their proposal would be through 3 of their vans. The city would get to pick the vehicle. So currently they're using frequently Ford Explorers, for example. We would put their technology inside of that. The Conduit, the vendor, would work with the city to develop business practices for how we want to operate. And that's again, part of that pilot process is we come up with some business rules, and that gives us that 12-month period to say, looking forward, if this is going to be an effective process, we need to change these things for RFP. The vendor does provide a turnkey solution, so we provide the people, they provide the vans and the technology that go into them. We, the city, monitor the process. They provide all the data. And it reports that will allow us to look and say, is this program effective? And the city also provides a point of contact to be the spokesperson to the vendor. So jumping all over the place here. Apologies. The pilot vehicles, they're estimating, and a very rough estimate because we haven't gone into this process yet, between $22,000 and $29,000 per vehicle per month. That's going to vary, again, depending on the number of months that we are collecting fines, because they have a yearly cost that they're spreading that out over those receivable months. Times that we're not receiving any fines, they would not receive anything. So it would cost more per month if we do a shorter time frame of collecting fines versus the 12 months. Conduit, their estimate is monthly receivables per vehicle is $85,000. Extremely approximate based on a whole lot of variables. So with appropriate conditions met and all those variables in play, The pilot project should be at least revenue neutral or cost neutral with a 12-month enforcement period. And that's with either a 1-month or a 3-month warning period at the beginning. And again, if we shorten the period of time that we're collecting fines, the monthly service fee to the vendor would go up during that fine collection period. But we believe that we would still be at least cost neutral over that period of time, again, with the appropriate conditions met. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions to staff?
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. And I had asked about whether we could do a 60 or 90-day warning period at the last meeting, and then the reason we tabled it to get the information, so I appreciate it. And I get a lot of complaints about speeding from my constituents, so I certainly understand that we want to make sure that we provide safety to all of our residents, and speed is certainly a factor in traffic accidents. So I'm not really stuck on the 60 or 90-day. My concern was more on education to the public, to let them know, we're going to start this program. Obviously, we're trying to deter bad behavior, and tickets certainly get people's attention. So I guess my question is, if we do just the 30 days with the 12 months, would we have time to do an educational campaign to the public to just let them know, you're warning, this is coming, and if you're speeding, you can get ticketed. And also my question is on the, the fine is $40, right?
Yes.
Okay. And, I'll let you answer my first question.
So yes, I believe we would have ample time to put together a public information campaign, both through city communications and the police PIO's office. And also the vendor can help with a public information campaign even prior to the 30-day notice. It would take time to procure all the equipment in this case anyway, and also we'd have to look for any staffing that would have to happen. We would have to bring them on board. That would give us plenty of time to start putting out a campaign to the public that would say, this is coming, this is how it's going to work. Plenty of good website examples out there that explain the process and the procedures and what's happening. So I believe we would have very ample opportunity, even prior to the 30-day warning notice, that this is going on. And then best practice would be close to the end of that 30-day warning period, we would do another public information campaign that says, okay, we're turning off the warnings, you're going to start actually getting a fine. And then sometime during that period of saying, once we have some data that shows how effective it is or not effective it is, we can do another public education campaign to say, this is what we're doing and this is why and this is the impact that we're seeing.
And are we talking about cars that are going more than 10 miles an hour? Or is that determined yet?
It's not exactly determined yet. That would be a policy decision. But yes, we would target, there would be some window of, it's not just 1 mile an hour over. It would definitely be some model, and normally it's at 10 or 11 miles an hour over the speed limit.
And then for the public, obviously this does not apply to highways because that's not under our jurisdiction.
That is correct. We're also limited by state law that we could not put them on a highway.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Zvonek.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A couple questions. Are there other vendors who provide this service?
Yes.
Is there a reason that we didn't do an RFP for the pilot itself?
The primary reason would be that we don't know necessarily what we'd be putting in an RFP, so we get an opportunity to test this with a pilot. Also, this vendor is the vendor that provided our services for the photo red light program several years ago, and they're also a vendor in the space nearby, so Denver uses conduit too.
Mayor, if I could.
Please proceed.
A couple other questions. So what measures are going to be used to determine the success of this program throughout the course of the pilot?
So similar to, and sent out speed enforcement sign data that we put out, very similar data would come out where the vans would be parked, especially considering the 30-day warning period. We pick an area that, we received a complaint in this particular area, in this stretch of road, we put the van out during the 30-day warning period, for example. We collect speed data that says this is how fast people are generally going. We monitor that over the 12 months by repeatedly putting the vans in the same place, and we'd be able to then compare that data to show, it's affecting speed or it's not in that zone. So as we do enforcement, are we issuing fewer citations would be the key part there. But it allows us to do other metrics too of within that non-violation speed, we'd know that we're catching, I don't know, say 60% of people are going 5 miles an hour or more, but not quite violating. It would give us a lot of data like that.
Got it. That's all I have, Mayor.
Please proceed.
it's-
Okay, further questions of staff? Councilmember Jorinsky.
Yeah. Can you just clarify what you just said? So they're going to stay in the same, all three vans are going to stay in the same place over the course of the 12 months, or if we get a lot of traffic complaints, we're going to move them?
Yeah, we would move them. The way to get really good data, though, is to repeatedly put them in the same place over that period of time. So we'd have, say, 12 months. We'd target a particular street for a week, move somewhere else, and then we could come back later and see if we've affected speed by comparing that data over time. So yes, we would absolutely move them to targeted locations where we have speeding complaints and known problem areas. We just repeatedly put them back in those same places to be able to analyze the data.
And can I,
Please proceed.
and every time we move them, we would do a 30-day warning?
No, it'd
Okay.
be a citywide 30-day warning period.
Okay.
And then after that, 12 months of enforcement wherever the vans were parked.
Okay. I don't think I would be agreeable to anything more than the 30-day warning notice. I don't think that we need to warn the public that if you speed, you could get a ticket. I mean, that's an actual law. So just to my colleagues, I would not be okay with any more than 30 days. And the last thing I want to find out, when we had the photo red light, the ticket, I believe, was $75. Why only $40 for speeding in residential areas?
These are maximums set by the Colorado revised statutes.
All right.
Mayor.
Further questions?
Mayor. Councilmember Lawson.
Councilmember Lawson.
I just had a question. So I know we're going to have limitations. We're going to have the 3 vans, but in terms of how we're going to do some outreach to the schools, because there's a lot of complaints with speeding in school zones. And how are you going to, is there already data collected for certain schools? Because I know that there's been a lot of complaints since I've been on council about schools that with the speeding. How are we going to address that issue? And I know that we only have certain limitations, but I know that that's going to be really important, especially with the school year starting in the upcoming month.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think we would, similar to how we do it today with the little signs that we put up that collect speed data, it would be a very similar process where as complaints come in to you or to other, Access Aurora and other places, we can collect that data and start looking at our targeted spots for this is where we're seeing a frequent number of complaints, and we can move the vans into those areas to include school zones, and we'd be able to collect that data from there.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just want to clarify that I'm good with the 30 days, as long as you said you could probably do the educational campaign leading up to that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor, sorry.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yeah, so I understand that this doesn't need to impact behavior. I think that's beneficial. I just wonder if there are going to be any comparisons or any consideration for traffic calming measures in the way that we look at the data. So if there are areas that also have traffic calming, are we going to consider that as a possible confounding factor for the efficacy of the sensor?
Councilmember, if I understand, I believe, yes, this would be very similar to the current speed data that we're collecting. It'd actually be probably even more efficient because we could just drive in instead of having to hang a sign. We could drive into a specific neighborhood where we have complaints. We would use that data then to say to the traffic calming progress or program with Public Works that we'd be able to justify extra traffic calming measures in place or test whether or not the traffic calming measures that were there are being effective in certain areas. So I think it would, very similar to the process that we have now, we just have a more efficient vehicle that we could use it for.
Staff? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve 10A?
It's moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by?
Sundberg.
Seconded by Councilmember Sundberg to approve item number 10A. Discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you. I'm not going to vote to support this. I have several issues. First of all, and I didn't even know that this was the same vendor that we used for the photo red light, though the irony of that is many of you probably are aware that the Aurora voters about 4 years ago voted to get rid of photo red light. Almost 70% of voters in Aurora said they did not want that here. I'm not sure how this is much different. That's one concern. Another concern is I fear that we will go down the road of using the revenue generated from this program to fund other needs in the city. We did the same thing with photo red light. We funded our Nexus programs, gang reduction programs, other youth violence reduction programs. And when the voters decided to get rid of photo red light, that funding went away and we had no way to fund those programs. Law enforcement and public safety should not be used as revenue generation. And that's what I'm afraid we're going to do with this. And lastly, I just have concerns with the civil liberties aspect of introducing more cameras into the public. So I hope that my colleagues will vote no on this. I don't suspect that will be the case, but I am not going to support this.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
The reason that we had excess funds that we used for the Nexus program was because we had, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we had surcharges on top of the ticket of the $40. So those surcharges were what were used for different programs, and I don't believe we're going to do surcharges on this one?
No.
We're not, okay.
And let me remind the council that this is a pilot program, and then it will have to come back to the council for authorization should it move forward and be a permanent program. Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Jurenski, then Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you. I also just want to say that, yes, it was the will of the voters to get rid of the photo red light, but it was also the will of the voters to ban pit bulls in this city. And before 4 of us came on this council this past November, this council also took that away from the voters and overruled that. Whether I agree with it or not, I'm just saying that was also something that the voters voted on. This is substantially less in fines than what was coming in from the photo radar, and I think that's how we were able to fund extra programs. I mean, I see a lot of fees associated with this, so I'm hopeful to cover our costs. I don't see this as a revenue generator, and quite frankly, I mean, people are dying every single day, and it's no secret that our police department is not manned enough to enforce all of these traffic laws and traffic violations. So I think as a pilot program, I definitely want to see the data and stuff like that. There's no way I could sign off on this permanently right now. I'm absolutely in support of this, and I hope that my colleagues are as well.
Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you. There's a long history of government that takes a program that's introduced and then raising the fees or costs later to fund other programs. So to say that this is where it's going to end is not. It's not going to be the case. We did the same thing with marijuana revenue. I'll remind my colleagues, we've raised marijuana sales tax revenue several times to fund other projects. And so to sit here and say that we will never do that with this program, I think is very disingenuous. And what I'm afraid of is to the point about more police. We need more police officers. I agree. This is not more police officers, and I'm afraid that this will get used as a reason to not hire more police officers because we are putting robots out on the street, cameras out on the street to film our residents driving around. My preference would be to see more police officers, not to see more cameras in our community.
Further discussion?
Mayor Sundberg?
Councilmember Sundberg.
I don't know if my at-large colleagues receive the same amount of urgent pleas for help that as a specific ward candidate would or representative, but they are numerous and they've been numerous, and thus a lot of council requests filled. Aurora is experiencing this problem at a much higher rate. Nationally, there's a 7% increase in fatalities. Colorado, a 16% increase in fatalities. Aurora, a 54% increase in fatalities. I had a town hall on the subject of traffic calming, and it was well attended, and it was impassioned at times that our city is simply not doing enough. There is a backlog of equipment that the city needs, whether it's those flashing warning speed lights that even adjust downwardly in a school zone. We don't have them to put up, as we experienced with Vista Peak, and as other schools that would love to have some immediate help. Paris Elementary for certain. Speed cushions, the speed bumps built on streets are $5,000 each. Put 8 of them down, that's over $40,000. Of course, you've mentioned staffing. I think if even this just went to neighborhood demand, let the neighbors vie for these things, these HOAs and so forth. School areas, principals would be rejoicing, I think, over this particular approach. With respect to the red light camera system, what's different about this is that there's a warning sign in advance, which the cameras did not have at red lights. And this is a pilot program. We're not committing to it. So being against it, I understand, especially if you want less government. But what are you proposing? It's hard to hire cops. And what are you proposing specifically to answer these calls for help? And I urge my colleagues to vote yes.
Further discussion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you. So using some data put together by the city staff last year, our transportation committee received a presentation, and the average cost of the traffic calming measures presented by the city was $17,000. Obviously, inflation has gone up. So let's say there's been a 100% increase, and it was around $34,000 per item. With a backlog of 55, we could complete the entire backlog with $1.8 million. And that would mean not putting more cameras out on the streets. It would mean not doing something that's against the will of the voters. I think with a budget, $500 million that we have, we could certainly find $1.8 million to clear that traffic calming backlog.
Let me just say that there is, recognize myself, there is not a funding problem in terms of attracting more police. I believe we're 34 officers short right now. It is a recruiting issue, and we are doing our best to fill those numbers. I know Councilmember Zvonek is chairman of the Public Safety Committee, and Councilmember Jerinsky, Councilmember Sundberg on that committee are doing all they can in terms of recruiting qualified officers to fill those numbers. Further discussion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, sir. I just want to agree with Councilmember Sundberg and many of the points that he brought up. Motor vehicles actually contribute to a tremendous amount of fatalities in the United States. I think that it's one of the few things that's lagging behind drug use, unfortunately, these days. So I don't see this pilot program as a solution in and of itself. My hope is that this will have a deterring effect in the short term. I think that there is some evidence to show that when folks get fined, there is a short-term change in their behavior. But our ultimate solution here is going to be changing the built environment. So that's going to include traffic calming measures, such as speed cushions and things of that nature, but also reworking how our surface lanes and our streetscapes basically are utilized and making them safer for pedestrians, bicyclists, and kids at play, and a little less, let's say, tempting for motorists to floor it, especially in our residential areas. I live right next to Chadsford, where Harvard is pretty darn wide, especially once you get close to Blackhawk. And I had someone fly by me in a red Cadillac CTS a couple of weeks back doing probably 60, would be my guess. And that's a 25-mile-an-hour area. So we need to, rework our built environment. And I'm very supportive of, this pilot. Let's see if it has a short-term effect while we get the strategy and resources necessary to rework our built environment. Thank you.
Further discussion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Zvonek.
I'm a little bit heartened to hear so many of my colleagues agree that increased penalty equals deterrence. I hope we remember that in a conversation we're going to have a little bit later in the agenda. But to this, I actually agree with Councilmember Gardner. Our voters just 4 years ago, by a 2/3 margin, said no to photo red lights. They were clear. They didn't want them. I do believe that there are other alternatives, and I believe we have to address them. To my colleague, Councilmember Sundberg's point, we owe it to our citizens to address this issue. I don't believe that this is the right answer, and I believe that, from whether it's transportation or public safety, we have a responsibility to find it, but this isn't it, so it'll be a no.
Further discussion.
Mayor?
Mayor Protem.
Yeah, I was at my last town hall. I actually had a constituent come up to me because we were talking about the traffic fatalities as well as other crime in the city. And he actually admitted to me that he voted against the photo red light during the election, and that he wished now that he had voted to keep it. And he has changed his mind basically because of the escalation in all the traffic fatalities and concern for his daughter who is driving as a teenager on the roads. So I think, I think it's a pilot program. I think if we're going to do the 30 days, it's a 12-month pilot program. I'd be interested also in the data and see what we find out from that. But as well as other ward council members, as Councilmember Sundberg stated, I get complaints weekly on, can you please enforce speeding? And my answer to them is we don't have enough police officers to take care of a city of 400,000 people, and I don't even know, what do we have, 4,000 miles of roads. So anyway, so I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Mayor.
Councilmember Jurenski.
One last thing I would like to say is that I also was one of the voters that voted to remove the photo red lights. And one of those reasons is because one main one is the intersection of Alameda and Abilene. If it was nighttime, these photo red lights lit up like a Christmas tree when they went off, and they would blind every single car in the intersection, and I felt like those were extremely unsafe. How these vans work, and I'm very familiar with these vans, other cities in the metro area have these vans, and I've seen them. There is a warning before you approach these vans. You are literally warned that you are coming up to one, and also it's just it's like a quick snap, like a quick flash. It doesn't light up the entire intersection and blind every single car at the intersection. I find this to be a lot different than the photo red light program.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 10A. Call for the question.
Mayor, we need a motion and a second. No, I'm sorry, we have one. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The motion passes with 8 yes votes, 2 no votes from Councilmember Zvonek and Councilmember Gardner.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 10B.
Item 10B is Resolution 2022-133, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support of a Bureau of Reclamation grant for the North Campus Radial Collector Well Drought Resiliency Initiative.
A brief presentation by staff.
Good evening. Aurora Water is applying for a grant from the Bureau of Reclamation in the amount of $5 million to help fund one of our capital projects. The project is for a well at our North Campus facility that will help expand the amount of water we can bring through our Prairie Water system. The total amount of the project is $11.5 million. So the grant would be $5 million. Aurora Water would fund the remaining amount of the project. And this resolution is for council to show support for us to apply for this grant, and that is a requirement of the Bureau of Reclamation in order to get the grant.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Lawson.
I move to approve 10B.
Moved by Councilmember Lawson, seconded by
Sundberg.
Seconded by Councilmember Sundberg to approve item number 10B. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, call for the question on the adoption of item number 10B.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-133.
Will the clerk now please read the title of item number 10C?
Item 10C is Resolution 2022-134, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, to fund the Salvation Army with general funds for them to operate pallet shelters at the Restoration Christian Ministries Safe Outdoor Space to provide shelter options for the homeless.
Staff will be giving a presentation on 10C, 10D, and 10E, and then I will return to each for a vote separately.
Good evening. We are bringing forward 3 agreements for construction and operational costs for the safe outdoor spaces. And as a reminder, we brought forward, or you approved, excuse me, on May 16th during study session to move forward with expanding the 2 current safe outdoor space sites, expanding shelter space with additional pallet shelters. So these 3 agreements will be for 2 of them for construction costs to prepare the sites for the additional pallet shelters. And the final one is for operational costs to have additional staff and food for those additional shelters. And the first one is for Restoration Christian Ministries. It's going to be for $300,000. That is for the construction costs. We are adding 20 shelters to that site. And then the Salvation Army agreement for $250,000. That will be for construction, and we're adding 10 shelters to that site. And then the operational costs are $600,000, and that's between the 2 sites. Salvation Army will be continuing to do the operations for those.
Questions of staff on item number 10C, 10D, or 10E?
Mayor,
Councilmember Jorensky.
I would just like to know, are these pallet homes at the Salvation Army, is this for 1 person or for 2 people?
The shelters can fit up to 2 people, and it will just depend on how many people are agreeing to go to the shelters and basically the makeup of the camps. They wouldn't put 2 people from separate camps into one shelter together just because that would probably cause some issues.
Further discussion. I'm sorry.
Can I just understand that? Is there like a homeless gang war going on, or what would that cause? How would that cause an issue?
Just putting folks together in a very tight space who don't know each other typically doesn't go well. The pallet shelters are quite small, and you get a tiny bed if you're sharing with 2 people, and then you have your space underneath it. It just does not go quite as well when you have folks who don't know each other sharing a space that small.
Councilmember Jorensky.
Yeah, I just don't think I'm okay without a guarantee of 2 people per shelter. I mean, offering a roof over their head. I mean, I'm a firm believer of beggars can't be choosers. And I mean, we're helping people get off the street. We have a lot of people to get off the street. And if we're going to allocate this kind of money, I would like to know that the more people we can help, the better, and that we're not allocating all of these funds for shelter, for pallet homes, for each one of them to have their own pallet home. I'm also worried that if they each have their own, does that really give any motivation for them to ever get out of there?
So Councilmember Jorensky, we've had conversations with Salvation Army, and ultimately some people may be perfectly fine with staying together, and so there may be exceptions to that. Generally, we'll just try to put people that have already been staying together, but we will try to maximize the space, absolutely. And I think the incentive for the pallet shelters has been well received from folks experiencing homelessness, that they are willing to come in and utilize those shelters. So we will work with Salvation Army to make sure those beds are obviously maximized as much as possible. If someone has certain type of behavioral or mental health issue that may not be appropriate to put them together just from a safety perspective. But obviously we'll try to maximize those beds as much as possible. And then there are stay limit times built into this agreement so that we are hoping to move people through the continuum to get them housed and then free up those beds for other folks transitioning out of encampments.
And one more.
Councilmember Jorensky.
What is that stay limit? Go ahead.
It's 7 days.
Impressive.
With the ability to stay longer if they are actively working with case management, but actively working with them.
Me too.
Okay. And where are the 25 pallet shelters that are on order now? Are they in yet, or where? Do you know when they'll be in?
It's 30 total, 20 at one site and 10 at the other, and they should be getting in the week of August 15th.
All 25? Okay.
Yes.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order for item number 10. First of all, are there further questions of staff? Seeing none, then a motion is in order for 10C.
Mayor, I move to approve 10C.
Moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by
Jorensky.
Councilmember Jorensky to approve item number 10C. Discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 10C. Call for the question.
Councilmember Sundberg and Gardner. The motion passes to approve Resolution 2022-134.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 10D?
Item 10D is Resolution 2022-135, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, to fund the Salvation Army with general funds to prepare their safe outdoor space for pallet shelters to provide a shelter option for the homeless.
Motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Jurenski.
motion to approve item 10D.
Moved by Councilmember Jurenski, seconded by,
Bergen?
second by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to approve item number 10D. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 10D. Call for the question.
The motion passes to approve Resolution 2022-135.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 10E.
Item 10E is Resolution 2022-136, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, to fund Restoration Christian Ministries with general funds to prepare their safe outdoor space for pallet shelters to provide a shelter option for the homeless.
Motion is in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs. It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Jurenski.
Councilmember Jurenski to approve item number 10E. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 10E. Call for the question.
The motion passes to approve Resolution 2022-136.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 10F.
Item 10F is Resolution 2022-137, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council's approval of agreements by and between the Aurora Urban Renewal Authority and the City of Aurora and the taxing jurisdictions of record within the Colorado Science and Technology Park Urban Renewal Area regarding tax increment revenues generated in a second tax increment financing area.
Brief presentation by staff.
Thank you, Mayor. The resolution today would approve 3 agreements between the City of Aurora, Aurora Urban Renewal Authority, and 3 different taxing entities which have which are within the proposed second tax increment financing area that would be created if the amended Colorado Science and Technology Park Urban Renewal Plan is approved later this evening. Earlier this evening, the Aurora Urban Renewal Authority approved these agreements, and basically because of Colorado law, anytime a plan is amended and a new tax increment finance area is created, it is required to get agreements in place when revenue sharing for those tax increments will occur, and in this case, it's with Aurora Public Schools, County, Adams County, and the Colorado Science and Metropolitan District.
Okay, questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem.
motion to approve 10F?
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by
Zavonic.
Seconded by Councilmember Zavonic to approve item number 10F. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 10F. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-137.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 10G.
Item 10G is Resolution 2022-138, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, approving the IGA between the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Colorado and the City of Aurora regarding the appointment of a special United States Attorney.
Brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Council. Pete Schulte, Public Safety Client Manager for City Attorney's Office. Good to see you all. This is what was brought up at a study session about having one of our Assistant City Attorneys appointed as a special Assistant United States Attorney for the District Court here, Federal District Court here in Colorado, to focus on prosecuting cases that arise out of the City of Aurora in federal court. And this is what we're asking you to do in the resolution is to approve the mayor signing the intergovernmental agreement with the U.S. Attorney's Office to allow that to happen.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Zvonik.
motion to approve item 10G.
It's been moved by Councilmember Zvonik, seconded by
Jurenski.
Councilmember Jurenski to approve item number 10G. Discussion? Seeing no discussion with questions before us is the adoption of item number 10G. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-138.
The time is now 7:30. Council will stand in recess until 7:35, giving staff an opportunity to do an announcement for the call-in line. Council stands in recess.
Members of the public who would like to speak on a resolution or ordinance and have not already spoken to the operator, press star 3 before the item is called by the clerk. For those watching on Channel 8, call 855-695-3475 to be connected, and then press star 3. Council is taking a short break to allow any additional speakers to sign up. Please be patient and stay on the line until the operator is able to take down your information.
The regular meeting of the Aurora City Council for July 11, 2022 is back in session. Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 11A?
Item 11A is ordinance 2022-40, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, rezoning a parcel of land measuring 5 acres more or less at the southeast corner of East 38th Avenue and Helena Street from residential rural district to business tech district and amending the zoning map accordingly.
Public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Eric Gates. I'm a planner with the Planning and Development Services. Before you is a request to rezone the area located at the corner of 38th Ave and Helena Street from RR to the I-1 Business Tech Zone District. As you can see, the site is currently bordered by RR and MUC zone districts. Further surrounding the area is a greater I-1 region, along with some MUOI, mixed-use, office and institutional. So here's the site should the zoning change be approved. And it should be noted that the whole region is within the industrial hub place type, which does support this proposed zoning and indicates a intent of the city to move this direction for the area. This item was heard and unanimously recommended approval from the Planning Commission, and staff also recommends approval based on the review criteria of section 146-5.4. The intent of the applicant is to build flex office spaces in this location, which would have to be reviewed through a site plan application at a later date. And the applicant has also shared some example imagery of the anticipated flex office use, which is what is on screen. Thank you.
Presentation by the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Peter Wall. Thank you very much for having me here this evening. My address for the record is 142 South Jackson Street, and just here to answer any questions that you may have. And just would lastly like to thank Eric and staff for their professionalism as always, and for having us here this evening.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to be heard?
Yes, Mayor, we have Peter Wall that signed up.
That was Peter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then no, we don't.
Okay. Questions of, let me see. Public hearing is now closed. Questions of staff or the applicant from members of council? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to approve 11A.
Moved by Councilmember Gardner, seconded by
Jurenski.
Councilmember Jurenski to approve item number 11A. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11A. Call for the question.
Councilmember Zvonek?
There we go. Yes, it wasn't popping up.
The motion passes to adopt ordinance 2022-40.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 11B.
Item 11B is ordinance 2022-41, a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado for a zoning map amendment to rezone 3 parcels of land to Airport District and Medium Density Residential District for approximately 242 acres of land located west of E470 and along the 48th Avenue alignment.
Presentation by staff. The public hearing is now open. Presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Brandon Camerata with the City Planning Department. Thank you. This proposal relates to the Windler Master Plan area. The Windler Master Plan area generally extends from 56th down south below 48th and exists on both sides of E470. Recently, the City Council did approve a rezone for this proposal on the east side of E470, and this proposal relates to the west side of E470. The applicant, GVP Windler LLC, is requesting to rezone 2 parcels of land, approximately 141 acres, shown in blue, from MUA, which is a mixed-use airport, to airport district. And then the remaining parcel, 96 acres, to R2, which is medium-density residential, also from MUA. The applicant is requesting this change to allow, this zone change to allow what are now conditional industrial uses that are intended for the blue parcels through the approved Windler Master Plan, for those to be allowed as by right uses as opposed to conditional uses. And the R2 is also contemplated as residential in the master plan. Therefore, this rezone is supported by that master plan. Planning Commission heard this item June 22nd and recommended approval unanimously. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Presentation by the applicant.
I believe the applicant's available for questions if asked.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to be heard on this item?
No.
Questions of staff and the applicant from members of council?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. So the change leapfrogs several different uses, that are then going to be sandwiched basically between this airport district. So I'm just curious why these areas in specific. What is the vision, I guess, for this area? Because I thought that this was supposed to be kind of a front door, if you will, to the city.
Mayor, through you, Brandon Camerata. So the existing MUA zone district does permit industrial uses as conditional approvals. And the master plan that has been pursued here contemplates industrial uses, for those blue areas that were identified in the map. And this rezone provides a little more certainty for that expectation that's been established in that master plan for those industrial uses without needing to go to a conditional approval for every incremental change within those districts.
Further question? I'm sorry. Further questions?
Follow-up. Thank you. So we'd be moving to a, industrial use, primary industrial use, as opposed to allowing, let's say, light industry to get conditional use permits. Are we then basically sacrificing any other kind of mixed use as a result?
Mayor, through you, Brandon Camerata again. So again, the existing zoning, which was MUA for this entire area, is a mixed-use zoning that permits industrial and residential zoning. And basically, the proposal in the master plan met those requirements in terms of percentages of residential relative to commercial. And so in that sense, it's still representative of that mix of uses horizontally.
Further discussion? Further questions to staff? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. A motion is in order.
Mayor, I move to approve 11B.
Moved by Councilmember Sundberg, seconded by?
Jurenski.
Seconded by Councilmember Jurenski to approve item number 11B. Further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 11B. Call for the question.
The motion passes to approve ordinance 2022-41.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 12B?
Item 12B is Resolution 2022-139, a public hearing for a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending the Colorado Science and Technology Park Urban Renewal Plan by creating a second tax increment financing area.
A brief presentation by staff.
Sorry. Thank you. Chad Argentar with the Planning and Development Services Division. This is for...
I stand corrected. I'm sorry. The public hearing is now open. A presentation by staff.
Thank you again. So the Colorado Science and Technology Park Urban Renewal Area, the plan was adopted in 2008, along with its first tax increment financing area, which currently makes up about half of the total urban renewal area, basically west of Scranton Street. The current, in 2018, when the golf course, the U.S. Army turned over title to the Fitzsimmons Redevelopment Authority, now the innovation community, that opened up an opportunity to continue development in the western portion of the urban renewal area to support development and infrastructure there. A second tax increment area is proposed, and in order to do that, the plan needs to be amended, and that is what is included in this amended plan. It's the creation of that second tax increment financing area, basically from Scranton all the way over to its western extent along Peoria Street. The plan also includes some updates related to development since 2008 and references the Aurora Places comprehensive plan as well as the station area plan. And so approving this plan this evening would create the second tax increment financing area and allow the Urban Renewal Authority and the City Council to execute the tax revenue sharing agreements with several other taxing entities, these agreements which were approved by both the City and Urban Renewal Authority earlier this evening. I do want to mention that part of the backup is, the main backup is the urban renewal plan, and staff, there was an oversight in one section of the plan, and we would like to propose an amendment to the backup in addition to it. It's a relatively minor one, and it's part of the, it's actually related to the agreements approved earlier this evening. In section 6.7 of the Urban Renewal Plan, we outlined the incremental revenues that the authorities would be collecting within the second tax increment financing area. The oversight is related to the fact that the Metro District also has a millage in the area, and we did not include a section in there that references the collection of incremental revenues from the Metro District to the authority. Again, 6.77, 6.78, 6.79 all reference these other taxing entities, APS, Mile High Flood, and the county. And so we would just propose that we would add another section with the exact same language in there as 6.77 and 6.78, but in reference to the Colorado Science and Technology Park Metro District.
Questions of the applicant? I'm
Mayor?
sorry, presentation by the applicant.
I think we are the applicant.
You are the both? You're both? Very well. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard?
Yes, we have April Giles who signed up.
Who is the applicant?
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm April Giles, Vice President for the Fitzsimmons Innovation Community, or FRA. I just want to say thank you for having us here tonight. We've worked diligently with the AURA team over the last 2 years, so I do want to thank Andrea and Chad. They've been very thoughtful, I would say, in their process with the other taxing jurisdictions. And I also want to thank Marcus Pochner and his team, because we went through a very thorough process of thinking about how we engage with the community around the TIF2 and the creation of a community benefit fund. And so working with Marcus was really beneficial in helping us engage with community members and understand the potential impact for our growth. So again, I'm here to answer any questions, but just want to thank you for considering the amendment tonight.
Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard?
No.
Questions of staff?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, and I know that this is potentially Bioscience 5 building will be going in. I think in the backup it said that anticipation of 9,000 jobs to be created with the new area, is that correct?
Yeah, at full build-out, so the 3 to 4 million square feet over the 20-year build-out period, that's what's projected.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about the Community Benefit Fund, how that's going to be managed, how the money's going to be set aside, that kind of thing?
Certainly. Right now, there is, the Community Benefit Fund would, be funded through incremental revenues in the future as increment is created. The idea behind it, as April was referencing, was before. Perhaps you want to,
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So the community, this just sets aside a portion of the incremental revenues to create the fund. The fund then would be collected by AURA and would be put aside for the Urban Renewal Authority Board to designate to uses that the board wanted to propose for community benefits. So it could be housing, it could be job programs and so forth. So that actual allocation of a minimum of at least of that 10%, at least half of that would go directly into the fund to be spent at later date. It will take a while for the incremental revenues to collect and be worthwhile enough to actually fund some activities. So we will go through a process with the AURA board to discuss how they want to move forward and allocate those funds, what uses, what programs, and the only qualification would be that they need to benefit the specific area surrounding the campus, which we've defined roughly as about a half a mile all the way around this area.
Mayor, can I ask a follow-up?
Councilmember Gardner.
So what other options exist for managing that money? I'm not really, I guess, in favor of the AURA board managing that. I'd prefer to see something community-driven that perhaps had some involvement from council. But so I'm just curious kind of how we arrived at the decision to have AURA manage that money rather than maybe like a third-party foundation or something like that.
Mostly because there is no money until the increment collects, and then in order to set it aside, it has to go to AURA. And council at that time, at the time that we were writing the plan, there isn't a specific entity. The board can, which is mostly made up, as you know, of the council as a whole, can then decide if they want to, for example, send that money to a third-party agency to designate. What I will say is that the other taxing jurisdictions in our negotiations with them for portions of this money, because they are contributing as well, they have asked that they also be involved in the allocation process of some of that. And so I actually perceive that we would be having conversations as a whole, the taxing entities, as a group to decide where some of the money should go, and it can be allocated to third-party agencies to actually disperse.
Mayor, one last follow-up.
Councilmember Gardner.
So to make sure I understand, we would engage Adams County, who I guess has a representative on the AURA board, Aurora Public Schools, but ultimately the AURA board could make that decision to allocate that money to a third-party community foundation, and staff, it doesn't have a problem with that?
No, the only thing is that there needs to be some, because the money is coming from increment, there are certain statutory regulations, and so staff will be involved in making sure that if we give money to a third, for example, let's say we give it to Mile High United Way, okay, and they can't give the money to programs in Englewood. That's kind of an example of why we just need to make sure that it's being spent appropriately in accordance with the statute. That's all.
Thank you.
Further questions of staff? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to approve item 12B.
So I'm sorry, you all need an amendment? You requested an amendment, am I correct in that?
That's correct. I'll change my motion, approve item 12B with the amendment proposed by staff.
First, no, I'm sorry. First, we do need a motion, and then we'll go to the amendment. So it's been moved by Councilmember Gardner, second by
Mayor, I'll second.
Councilmember Lawson. Now an amendment would be in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Gardner.
Staff, can you please restate the amendment for the record?
Sure, I didn't state it before, council member, but I'll state it out for the record. So this would be 100% of the property tax increment derived from the Colorado Science and Technology Park Metropolitan District shall be allocated to the authority for the purposes and activities outlined in this plan.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to propose that as an amendment.
Moved by Councilmember Gardner, second by?
Mayor, I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Lawson. Discussion on the Gardner amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Gardner amendment to item number 12B. Discussion? The same thing. Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll? Call for the question on 12B.
The motion.
On the amendment, I'm sorry.
The
on
motion
Gardner
passes to approve Councilmember Gardner's amendment to item 12B.
Are there any other amendments? Further discussion on item number 12B as amended? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 12B as amended. Call for the question.
The motion passes to adopt Resolution 2022-139.
Since item number 14A through 14G were passed and first read unanimously, they can be taken in as a single vote, no different than a consent calendar. Motion.
Mayor. Motion to approve item 14A through G.
Moved by Councilmember Gardner, seconded by?
Bergen.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem to approve item number 14A through 14G. Discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 14A through 14G. Call for the question.
The motion passes to approve items 14A through 14G.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 14H.
14H is ordinance 2022-37, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending sections of the city code pertaining to mandatory minimum sentences for certain offenses in the Aurora Municipal Code and other amendments to the city code to combat the increase in motor vehicle theft and related offenses.
Councilmember Zvonek.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance proposes to address one of the most challenging public safety issues that our city faces, and that is motor vehicle theft. Motor vehicle theft has a devastating impact not only on the victims, for those who have their car stolen, but also for the victims that are created by people who commit crimes in those stolen cars. This ordinance seeks to create certainty and penalty. For too long, our state has made a number of crimes more permissive and has led to a skyrocketing number of motor vehicle thefts across our state and across our city. And so this ordinance is an attempt for us to begin to take action to make Aurora safer. And with that, I want to turn it over to the City Attorney's Office to talk through the specifics of what the ordinance would do.
Thank you, Councilmember Zvonek. Pete Schulte again, Public Safety Manager for City Attorney's Office. Good to see you all again. So back to, again, what we talked about at the last council meeting that was passed. This ordinance changes a few things. One of the things is, as Councilmember Zvonek stated, under our specific statute for motor vehicle theft, It creates a mandatory minimum sentence of 60 days for anybody who has not been prosecuted or convicted of a similar offense or the same offense in the city of Aurora previously. It then does a repeat offender that says that the minimum sentence will be 120 days if somebody has been previously convicted under the same offense in the city of Aurora or any similar offense in the state of Colorado or any other state. It also adds a failure to appear minimum mandatory jail sentence of 10 days. Again, for all of these, that the first 3 days will be served at our detention facility here in the city of Aurora, and then they will go to the county jails where they will serve the remainder of their sentence. Section 2 of the ordinance changes, one of the things is adds subsection J to add for minimum mandatory sentencing for what council may do in the future, puts it all in one place. But then it changes the general penalty for up to 364 days to be in compliance with state statute, and changes the value of theft in section 3 for any value of less than $1,000 to, again, comply with state statute. It used to be $2,000. And then it adds a component under subsection E of the theft section, adding a major component of a motor vehicle, which then includes a catalytic converter, which we know the legislature took out this last legislative session, made it a petty offense under state law. So this now puts it in a very specific in the Aurora City Code to make it a violation and subject to the general penalty, as we talked about, up to $2,650 fine and up to 364 days in jail. The other important thing about this particular ordinance, it does have a sunset provision. It'll be 2 years from the date of today if it passes the final reading, where it will be reviewed. If it is not reviewed and re-upped in 2 years, it will expire. And the only thing that will stay the same would be the changes to up to 364 days in jail and changing the theft ladder value of making it $1,000.
Questions
that's all I have as far as from staff.
Okay.
Mayor.
Questions of staff?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, sir. Pete, thank you for your brief presentation. Again, I have a question for you here. And can you tell us, with regards to the failure to appear provisions, what other jurisdictions have similar failure to appear penalties with associated jail time?
So I will tell you that most municipalities in the state of Colorado actually have a failure to appear ordinance if they choose to actually file that charge. And we talked about the last council meeting is that in the past, we have not been charging an additional offense to defendants who have failed to appear. And under this, we will be doing that in certain circumstances we talked about where the criminal division of the city attorney's office deems that we have a trial set and the defendant doesn't appear. Those are going to be the times that we're going to be adding those charges. So I don't know of any other cities that have a mandatory minimum. I haven't heard that. I haven't done the research though, just to be fair and complete. But failure to appear is very common as a separate offense because it separates it from the underlying criminal offense.
Mayor?
Mayor.
Sorry, I have several follow-ups.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Marcano.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so thank you, Pete, for that clarification. So one, I just want to understand or make sure that I heard you correctly. We have not done the research into other jurisdictions that have mandatory minimums or mandatory jail time for failure to appear? And we're proposing that?
Correct. We have not looked into other cities that have a minimum mandatory sentence for failure to appear.
Okay, wow. I'm a little surprised to hear that. The second part of the question that I have for you here is in those other jurisdictions that do have failure to appear ordinances, can you tell me a little bit about the language that's used? I think that in Colorado, we have some, like a knowingly or intentionally or something like that, that you have to use to qualify whether you can charge somebody with something. Why do we not have that in our ordinance?
So if there is not a mental intent actually specifically stated, it is referred back to the intent of the actual ordinance. And I don't know, I haven't done the research of other failure to appear ordinances in other cities. But in this particular case, there's always going to be, if somebody gets charged of failure to appear and they have a legitimate reason of why they could not come to court, that would be a defense to that case, right? But somehow they're making a conscious decision to not make the appearance in court that day, and that's what satisfies the failure to appear elements of that offense.
All right, Mayor? Thank you, sir. And this can go either to the city attorney or to the sponsor of this, but why on earth were these things not researched? Why are they coming before us without us doing any due diligence on this?
The Mayor.
Councilmember Zvornik.
Yeah, look, when we were drafting this, the purpose, as I stated, was to try to address motor vehicle theft in the city, which is seeing just an exploding amount of car theft. And one of the challenges that was brought to my attention was the number of people who play this game, where a criminal will show or doesn't show up, the victim does, possibly a witness, and there's no penalty to it. And this is a serious crime. When people have their cars stolen, it's their livelihood. This isn't a typical property crime. This is people's way to work. This is how they get their kids around. And so people who don't show up for their court date with no reason, just decide not to, I believe they should face a strict penalty. And so as we started to think about what are some of the options, the minimum mandatory was one that was brought forward as an option, and I decided to put it in here in order to have to meet that goal of making Aurora a place where, one, you don't want to steal cars, and two, if you do, you're going to show up for your court date.
Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember McConnell, please proceed.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so I appreciate the well-rehearsed stump there, but you didn't answer my question. Why is this before us without any due diligence being done to research this, sir?
Councilmember Zvornik.
Yeah, this was brought forward. Look, I understand that we're doing something that might be unique for us. We're not running with the pack. We're going to lead the herd. We're going to show exactly how we can lead on trying to drive down motor vehicle theft in a city and make sure that people show up for their court dates when they victimize members of our community.
Mayor, let me respond real quickly to the research. There are no other cities in the state of Colorado that have minimum mandatory sentences for failure to appear. Okay, so but as far as the question that you asked, Councilmember Marcano, about looking at other failure to appear ordinances in other cities, we're very comfortable with our failure to appear ordinance, that it's enforceable under Colorado law. So we didn't go beyond that. What Councilmember Zvornik asked us to do is if we could do a mandatory minimum, could that be something we could do under our code? And yes, it was his prerogative to bring that forward. So I don't want to say there wasn't any research. There just isn't a lot of other cities doing this right now in the state of Colorado.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. In terms of the failure,
Councilmember McConnell, let me go to Mayor Pro Tem, and then I'll come back to you.
Sure.
on the failure to appear, I mean, my opinion is unless they have a really good reason why they didn't appear, medical, whatever, you know, if you stole a vehicle and you have impacted a victim, and that's real, I mean, that impact to a person is real, then, and you don't show up to court, then you should be in jail. I mean, we have to get tough on motor vehicle theft because we hear it all the time. You see the stats in the city and the state as far as the increases, and we need to let people know that we're not going to tolerate vehicle motor theft in the city of Aurora.
Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, sir. So with the way this is written, and I think I caught this intent in what you spoke about, Pete, this would also, this applies to more than just motor vehicle theft with regards to the failure of appear provision. Is that correct?
Correct, because previously what was going on, Councilmember Marcano, there would be, if somebody didn't show up for a court date, a warrant would issue and there would be fines and other fees associated with the underlying criminal offense, right? So what would happen is that without having the additional failure to appear offense placed on the defendant for not appearing, if we had another issue 2 or 3 or 4 trial settings down the road and the criminal division of our office had to dismiss the case, then the fees and the extra charges would go away as well. There would be no penalty for not showing up for your court date. By adding the failure to appear in certain circumstances, and again, I'm not going to speak for Deputy City Attorney Julie Heckman, that's her, we have this ethical wall, that's her decision, but the idea is the most inconvenience for our citizens. For defendants who don't show up for their trial settings after they've said the week before they're going to be there, that would be the time, because if the underlying criminal case goes away, the defendant still has to face the failure to appear, and if this ordinance passes, with the mandatory minimum of 10 days.
Mayor?
Councilmember McConnell, please continue.
Thank you, sir. So I guess at this point, I'd like to offer an amendment and that would be to add a mens rea clause to the failure to appear provision. I'm really concerned that that's going to come back to bite us. I mean, I think that what we're doing here, especially knowing that this applies outside of motor vehicle thefts, this just seems, frankly, a little sadistic. Like, this is way above and beyond what I think is reasonable. I think that we're going to probably get sued over this provision, and it's not even well defined. So there are a lot of issues here. And I'm not an attorney. I know that the Public Defender's Office has already expressed their concerns about this as well. I just feel like what we're doing here is really, really dangerous. So I'd like to, at the very least, offer an amendment to add a mens rea clause to the failure to appear provision.
Councilmember McConnell, would you do me a favor? As soon as we're done with questions to staff, then we'll go to, because we haven't had a motion on the proposed ordinance yet, and then we'll go to amendments.
All right.
Okay. Are there further questions of staff?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs?
Yes, so I just had kind of a follow-up on that line of questioning from Councilmember. What percentage of failures are on motor vehicle theft in the city of Aurora, and what percentage of failures appear on other charges?
Councilmember Coombs, I don't have that information on because, well, let me tell you, before now, we have not been issuing failure to appear citations. So it's be difficult for us to go back and figure out how many FTAs have actually been done on different types of cases because, again, all the fines and the fees for failure to appear were put on the original criminal charge. And so that's something we have not used in the past. But it's, again, it's section 50-33 of our municipal code for failure to appear, and that is a separate offense. So I don't think even if we look for that information, I'll be able to get that information for you because we just haven't been filing these FTAs as a separate offense.
Further questions of staff?
Yeah, sorry, can I have a follow-up? Yeah, so understood on that. But the other confusion that I have is there really prosecutorial discretion if there's a mandatory minimum? Saying we have a mandatory minimum on a failure to appear, is there prosecutorial discretion on when that gets issued, or is it the point of a mandatory minimum to remove that prosecutorial discretion?
So under Colorado law, whether it's the DA or the city attorney, we bring the charges, right? We bring the charges on behalf of the people. We make the charging decisions, and it goes back to, we got asked a lot of questions this week from the media or the last 2 weeks about how many charges of motor vehicle theft get filed in municipal court, how many get filed in the county, right, at the DA level. Those are charging decisions. So the criminal division of the city attorney's office under City Attorney Broadsman's leadership will set those parameters. But again, the direction that Councilmember Zvonek has given us is that he only wants those type of charges, and again, this could be the discussion of council as well, as part of this is, we're not going to file this on people not showing up on the first appearance, right? Because it's not taking, could it be done? Sure, but that's not the point. The point is when we're ready for trial and the defendant doesn't appear and they're told to have been there after being issued, 5033 subsection A is the offense under the city code that we would file that on. But that is the reason why we would start using the FTAs is in those extreme circumstances that put our citizens at a disadvantage.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor?
Councilmember Sundberg.
I just need some help in educational process for myself about the trial process when these criminals are just skipping out. In these cases, at that point, is there often a jury in place?
So the way it works is, and I know Mr. Wilson, the public defender, was here a couple weeks ago and explained to me that I was wrong on my days, but the Wednesdays before, right, we have a pretrial, the final pretrial setting. Everybody's there. We'll say, hey, are the people ready? And we announce whether they're ready or not. And then the defense says, are the defense ready? Judge says you'll start trials on Tuesday or Thursday, one of those 2 days. There are jurors that are brought down. And so that doesn't mean they're picked for that case yet, but once they show up on Tuesday, then jury selection would proceed if everybody was there. And so if a defendant doesn't appear, let's say we have 5 cases that are set to go to trial in that division. 5 defendants don't show up, we've had all those citizens that would have, come down for jury service, that we wouldn't be able to use their jurors, their service as jurors, because the defendants didn't appear. They're a necessary party.
Just a massive waste of people's time and a collective hours and a wrench in the gear of the process, in my estimation.
Correct. And I will tell you, as a former defense attorney in my previous lifetime, that is part of the process, right? That's part of the game, is because the people have the burden of proof, right? We're not, if our people don't show up, if our victim or our witnesses or our officers don't show up, we have the burden. So if we don't have those, that's why, as Mr. Wilson said last time, 52% of our cases set for jury trial get dismissed because we don't have the necessary parties on the prosecution side showing up.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So the victims, a lot of times, well, probably all the time, show up, and then if the offender doesn't show up, then the same thing. They've wasted their time after they've gone through all the agony of having their car stolen, and I don't even know how the hell they got there, but they had to make the effort to get to court. So I have no sympathy.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor?
Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, I just had a quick clarification on that as well. Now, this failure to appear, what happens if the victim or the witness do not appear? Do they fall into that same?
So this is the predicament, right, that Mr. Wilson brought up as the public defender. I mean, if he wants us filing failure to appears on witnesses and forcing them to come to court where their cases don't get dismissed, and then, I mean, that would be the result. It's counterintuitive, right? What we're trying to prevent is again, if the defendant shows up, right, shows up to court on their trial date, and the victim chooses not to show up, our option is to either go forward without that witness and lose the case or dismiss it. And what our criminal division does is, to avoid wasting everybody's time, is because we're called to court, we're called to trial, is we dismiss the case. And so there isn't the same, again, and I laughed with the public defender, I said, if you want to take the burden away from us too, then we'll do that. Obviously we can't, because the people always are going to have the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, but that's the indication of why it doesn't apply the same way.
Further questions of staff?
Mayor?
Councilmember Coombs.
Yeah, so sorry to continue on this line of questioning. So I understand that the legislative intent stated by Councilmember Sonic is that only people who are failing to appear at their trials and on motor vehicle tests are the people that are going to be charged. My question is there any guarantee that that legislative intent what carried out by the way that? So what I want to do is make sure that we're actually passing an ordinance that reflects that legislative intent, if that's what we're saying we're going to do.
Okay, and you cut out a little bit, Councilmember Coombs. I want to make sure, so you're stating that you're wanting to put something in the ordinance to restrict when the people on behalf, with the city attorney's office on behalf of the people, can file an FTA?
Sorry, or just in general, what would be needed to make sure that that legislative intent is reflected?
Okay, and I'll refer back to you, Councilmember Zvonek, as a policy type decision.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, or Mayor, if I can.
Please proceed.
So do we need anything in there?
We're not, I will tell you that the position of our office from the criminal division's side is we're not going to waste everybody's time. Now, I want to be clear, this doesn't include traffic violations. These are going to include most offenses under our municipal code that are going to be subject to the general violation penalty, right? It's up to 364 days in jail, up to $2,650 fine. We're having the issues with staffing like everybody else. We are only going to file these charges on the cases where, again, I believe, and this is, again, going to be Julie Heckman, our deputy city attorney over the criminal division, it's going to be her division's decision, but we've talked about it, and basically the most time when we're going to file FTAs is when our citizens are inconvenienced, right? Because again, if you have 2 or 3 or 4 trial settings and the victims have to keep coming down, at some point the victims get fed up and they just don't show up anymore, right? So if we're going to talk about the Wednesday before and our office calls the victim and the police officers and say, hey, we're going to trial on Tuesday, right? And we're ready to go, the defendant better be there, right? If not, we're going to file the FTA because you know what? Our staff is having to do a lot of work to get ready for trial every week. And so those are the cases we're going to focus on.
Mayor?
Councilmember Zvonik.
Are the suspects given notice that a failure to appear could potentially be unlawful and lead to a criminal penalty?
I can't speak for their defense attorneys, but I will tell you that it's very clear from when they're issued the summons, when they're in court, that they're required to be there and subject, if they don't appear, they're subject to additional consequences. When I was a defense attorney, I did let my clients know that if you don't appear, you are subject to additional charges, especially in municipal court.
And does that, would that then make, Councilmember Marcano had offered or will offer an amendment offering a mens rea clause. It seems like that in the notice that they're given through the summons and hopefully through their defense attorneys would negate the need for that.
Correct. I mean, when he's talking about mens rea, he's wanting to add an intentionally, knowingly, recklessly with criminal negligence, right? The way our failure to appear statute reads is failure to appear in the municipal court at the designated time after having been issued a summons and complaint for a violation of any provisions of this code, except for a traffic infraction, shall constitute a violation of this section regardless of the disposition of the original charge. So the underlying criminal offense, okay? If a partnership, unincorporated association, corporation, or other business entity named as a defendant fails without justification to appear as required as any stage of the proceedings, the court shall note the failure to appear, enter a plea of not guilty if no plea has been entered, and notify the finance department of such failure to appear. That applies to non-human defendants, right? So it in essence is a strict liability offense. If the people can prove that you were told where to be and told when to appear and you don't appear, it's a violation. Now, they have every other defense that's entitled under the code that if they want to say that it was, undue burden to get to court, there were other issues that came up, then that is a defense to the charge of failure to appear. But these are strict liability. It means if it happens, you violate you violate regardless of the intent, because it's not like you're intending to harm somebody, right? An assault is intentionally or knowingly or recklessly causing bodily injury to another person. Yeah, you have to intend to cause injury to that person. But being told where to be and what time to be there, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's why I have no problem with how our failure to appear statute is written.
Further questions of staff? I'm sorry, Councilmember Coombs?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Mr. Wilson could comment both on the mens rea issue and also the legislative intent and application of failure to appear issue.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of City Council. Several things, specifically about the mens rea. This is going to get a little technical, but right now the FTA is in the court section. It is not in the punishment section. It is not in the penalty section. It is not in the crime section. It is under Title 50-33. If you read 50-33, it does not set up a defense. It does not allow a defense unless you're a business. My learned counsel, Pete, just read that to you. Unless you are a business, you do not have a defense to failure to appear. It is, in fact, a strict liability crime, which I'm telling counsel right now isn't constitutional without a mens rea. I did a little research. 43 states have including Colorado, have a failure to appear substantive crime, not something buried in the court section. And all of those, almost all 43, have a mens rea, either knowingly, willfully, intentionally, and or a provision that says without legal justification, meaning you can present a defense. Councilmember, I think we're missing something big here on the FTAs. This isn't just about motor vehicle thefts. This is every FTA on every type of case. And it does apply to victims, and it does apply to police officers, because the FTA, again, ordinance that you're looking at is in the court rules and the court procedures, not a separate substantive offense under 94. That's the section where we have the code for all the crimes. So while, excuse me, Pete is talking about, am I going to ask for warrants or for victims or police officers or witnesses for 10 days, what I'm suggesting is what you're hearing today is a clear equal protection violation if in fact the prosecution, as we said, led by Mr. Brotzman, is only going to charge defendants when they don't show up. 52% of the time the cases are dismissed on the day of trial because the prosecution doesn't have their witnesses present. And it is not always because it's the second or third setting. The prosecution continues many cases as well. But 52% of the time the cases are dismissed because they don't have their evidence to present at the trial. It's not just on our clients. So yes, I will be asking for those sanctions once the case is dismissed, because that's what you guys are about to pass. If you don't change the language, if you don't look at changing it, moving it over to Title 94, or Section 94, not Section 50, and if you don't put a mens rea in. Strict liability crime, which you heard Pete just say, isn't going to be constitutional. You cannot have an offense that just says, if you do X, you go to jail. That's in direct violation of most of the Bill of Rights as it relates to criminal defendants. You can have a crime that says if you do X and you meant to do it, or you did it knowingly and you are convicted, but that's not what you're writing right now. And the legislative intent, why when we attack this ordinance, which will have to happen, yes, the legislative intent will become part of that discussion, excuse me, but it's not binding on the court. It's merely persuasive authority. And what goes on here, well, we can get a transcript and we can discuss it. But if you pass this, I am telling you, it's not going to be constitutional the way you're setting it up. It's not even in the right section of the code for a crime.
Mayor?
Please proceed. Staff, do you have a response to that?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. Doug, you know I have a whole lot of respect for you. All right. The general penalty is in the beginning of the code, right? The general penalty is not in each chapter of the municipal code repeated. Everything that's in the code flows through the entire municipal code. He talks about mens rea. Everybody knows, all right, the number one crime that is a strict liability crime that does not require a mens rea is driving under the influence, right? Can you imagine if we had to say somebody intentionally and unknowingly drove under the influence, what every defendant would take the stand and argue? Okay, there are several offenses out there that are determined to be strict liability. So Doug is doing a great job trying to protect his clients, as a good defense attorney does. But it's not required under the failure to appear statute for a mens rea under the strict liabilities as he's stating.
With all due respect, lawyers love to talk, but none of the offenses, even DUIs, aren't going to be a minimum mandatory sentence. That's the offensive part, is you are saying somebody's in the hospital on a theft case and doesn't come to court, and I would urge you to take a look at the actual first sentence in 50-33, which specifically says it's only the summons and complaint. It's not trial. In fact, it says the specific date set out on the summons and complaint. If you do not show up then, it is an FTA. Does not say trial at all. Read sentence number 1, 50-33.
Mayor?
Further questions of staff? Mayor Pro Tem.
So what is the consequence if we don't do this, failure to appear? What is the consequence for someone failing to appear every single time? Because I think that's what happens when we hear repeat offenders and there's no consequences, they're not going to jail, and they're re-victimizing people.
So, a couple things about the failure to appear. One is, when we're talking about, let me pull that up again, because I was looking at other parts of the code. The summons, all right, when they appear on a summons initially, the judge then directs them when they are to return, all right? It's a continuation of the summons. So, correct, as Mr. Wilson stated, a literal reading of the statute says a summons, but a summons carries through. A summons is what brings you to court. Once you're there, the court has jurisdiction over you and can order you back, all right? As far as the other, about the minimum of 10 days, what Councilmember Zvonek had stressed to our office when we assisted him in writing this ordinance was he wanted to make sure there was a penalty for individuals choosing not to show up for court. We could still file the FTA without this mandatory minimum in the ordinance of the 10 days. But again, I know Councilmember Zvonek's focus was to make it known if you're going to get charged with an offense in the Aurora Municipal Court, you better show up, because regardless of what happens on the underlying criminal offense, if you get convicted of the FTA, you're going to do at least 10 days in jail.
So, Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem.
So you said the summons starts the process. So if
Correct.
they don't show up for that initial summons, they're not showing up for anything, are they? I mean, at that point, they're like, why?
Right, at that point, then a warrant would issue as long as there is documentation. Again, then the people still have the burden of proof, right? We're still going to have evidence that a lawful summons was issued. If that is done, then a warrant will issue. Once they get arrested again, they'll be either released on a personal recognizance bond or have to otherwise bond out and be given a new court date with a summons.
Right.
Right? Then they come back. And so that process can keep going and going until the defendant decides to actually stay and handle the case.
And in the meantime, they have stolen 3 more vehicles, probably.
Okay,
So,
further.
just one more.
Mayor Pro
So
Tem.
if they have a legitimate reason for not showing up, you're not going to send them to jail?
No, I mean, again, we have the burden. We're not going to waste a jury trial when somebody produces, again, this is my days as a prosecutor, I'm not going to waste a jury's time if somebody's able to show medical records that they were in the hospital on the day of their trial.
Right, or they had a car accident.
Or a car accident, or anything that's going to justify why they weren't there, all right? But it's the same thing that we do now, all right? If they get assessed a fine or a fee for not showing up and they can explain to the judge, I was in the hospital, I was in a car wreck, they don't get levied those fees or fines.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions of
Mayor.
staff? Councilmember Jurenski.
Yeah, these delay tactics are getting a little bit old, and why we've been sitting here debating on this, we can't even get to call to the question. There's probably been 10 cars stolen, and quite frankly, the bigger issue on whether or not they appear in court is the fact that they allegedly stole a vehicle in the first place. So if you don't want to be in this predicament in the first place, the message from Aurora, Colorado, don't steal a car here. That's it.
Okay. Further questions of staff? I'm sorry.
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
First, can I be heard, or is it still breaking up?
It's kind of breaking up, but we can hear you.
Okay, so my other question is just why we still have no fiscal note on this, on what the increase cost is going to be for the prosecution and for the defense and for the court and the jails. We had a conversation about that last time. There's still no fiscal note. We said, oh, we'll figure it out, but the prosecution is understaffed. The defense is understaffed. The court is understaffed. And we can say we want to make sure we prosecute this no matter what. That's fine. But we can't just say we're going to find the money no matter how much money it is, or we're going to get creative no matter what in a bunch of understaffed departments. So I would like to ask that we continue this item to the next city council meeting pending a fiscal note signed off on by all the affected departments.
We have to have a motion to bring this to the floor first, and then we can entertain amendments or, well, motion to table or continue. And so let me just ask it, are there any other questions of staff? Seeing none, a motion is in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Zvonik.
motion to approve item 14H.
Moved by Councilmember Zvonik, seconded by
Bergen.
Councilmember Jurinski. She made such a passion plea, I got to go with her on a second. Seconded by Councilmember Jurinski to approve item number 14H. Further discussion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Jurinski.
I'd like to call for the question, please.
Okay. But there's.
Second.
Do I have to allow amendments first, or is it just?
Second.
So you've had two motions, so you need to handle those first.
Okay, I'm going to have to, Councilmember Jurinski, I'm going to have to handle the motions first. And so Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, Mayor. So I would like to offer as an amendment the following. Sorry, hang on a second here. All right, so this will be in the first sentence, a mandatory minimum jail sentence of 10 days shall be imposed, and this is where the amendment begins, for a intentional or knowing failure to appear for an alleged violation of motor vehicle theft. And that's the end of the amendment.
So moved by Councilmember Marcano, seconded by?
Coombs.
Seconded by Councilmember Coombs. Discussion on the Marcano amendment?
Mayor,
I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
maybe I could ask the sponsor. His amendment is specifically on motor vehicle theft?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and sponsor, Councilmember Zvonik?
Yeah, my preference would be a no. As the city attorney's office has already suggested, it's not necessary in order for us to make sure that the intent of this ordinance, and frankly, if there are other failures to appear outside of this, it's going to be for some pretty bad crimes. So I would urge a no vote on this. I don't think it's necessary.
Further discussion on the Marcano amendment?
Mayor.
Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, sir. I think that it behooves us to be as clear as possible as other jurisdictions are and include a mens rea clause for this. And I have to say that overall, I'm still going to strongly oppose this ordinance. I think that the minimum jail sentence for a failure to appear is likely going to be held to be cruel and unusual punishment and is going to get us in a tremendous amount of trouble. So don't say I didn't warn you. I would strongly caution this whole thing should be struck out, but I'm going to start with this amendment at least to see if we can get that done.
Question on the Marcano amendment.
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
To be clear, the number one crime charged in our court is trespassing. So failures to appear aren't going to be for some pretty bad crimes. I think the second most common is also a pretty petty offense. I would leave it to the staff to elaborate on what those are because I'm sure I can't be heard super clearly.
Amendment, further discussion on the Marcano amendment.
Mayor,
Councilmember
I'd like to call for the
Jurinski.
question on the Marcano amendment.
So, Councilmember Jurinski has moved, call for the question. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Jurinski, seconded by Councilmember Zvonik for a motion to call for the question. Would the clerk, call for the question on the Jurinski motion.
To end discussion.
It is a non-debatable motion.
Mayor Kaufman.
Mayor votes aye.
The motion passes with 8 yes, 3 no votes to end the debate. No votes from Councilmember Marcano, Coombs, and Murillo.
Councilmember Coombs, to your amendment.
Okay, so it's not an amendment. It is a motion to continue the item to the next regular council meeting pending a fiscal analysis signed off on by all impacted departments.
Can you do that on a motion to table?
It's just a motion to table, and then she gave.
Point of order, Mayor.
It's a motion to table.
Well, okay.
Point of order, really quick. I believe we just voted on the Jurinski motion, for call for the question, which means we should
No,
be
it's
voting
call for the question on the Marcano amendment.
on Marcano amendment. So we should be voting on the Marcano amendment now, correct?
We already, I'm sorry, you're correct. I stand corrected. Question before us is the call for the question on the Marcano amendment.
The motion does not pass with 6 no votes and 4 yes votes. The yes votes from Councilmember Medina, Marcano, Coombs, and Murillo.
Councilmember Coombs has a motion to table. It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Marcano to table. Discussion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Jurenski.
I'd like to call for the question, please.
Call for the question on the motion to table.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Jurenski, second by Councilmember Zvonek. Call for the question on the Jurenski motion to table. I mean, the Jurenski motion for call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman.
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes with 7 yes votes, 4 no votes from Councilmember Medina, Marcano, Coombs, and Murillo to call for the question
Okay.
on tabling.
Call for the question on the motion to table.
Yes,
Okay.
so it passed. So now we're at tabling.
Yes. Yes, I misstated that. The prior vote was just a vote on the motion to call for the question. Now this is a vote on the motion to table, the Coombs motion to table.
Mayor Kaufman.
Mayor votes yes.
On the motion to table?
This is the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor, I stand corrected. Ouch. Mayor votes no.
Zvonek also votes no.
You almost did the right thing.
Okay, there is 7 no votes to table, 4 yes votes. Yes votes from Councilmember Medina, Marcano, Coombs, and Murillo to table the item.
Are there further amendments?
Mayor.
Councilmember Marcano.
Thank you, sir. I would just like to ask why my colleagues are afraid of discussing the merits of this idea.
Further discussion.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and answer that.
Councilmember Jurenski.
I'm not afraid of discussing the merits of an idea that's like beneficial for the city. What you want to discuss is all criminal friendly, and it's not up for discussion. I'll continue to call for the question.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion? Did you just make a motion to call for the question?
Sure, yeah, every time. It's a permanent standing call for the question.
Okay, so call for the question on the ordinance
Second.
itself, on the proposed ordinance itself. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Jurenski, second by Councilmember Zvonek, to call a motion to call for the question on the 14H. Where am I? 14H. To the call for the question on the motion to call for the question.
Mayor, I believe this is the call for the question to vote on the ordinance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
No.
we're voting on the motion.
You're voting to end debate.
In debate. I know, I read different.
Okay.
It's stuck in here again. vote do you have in front of us right now? No, you have the wrong one. You have the open one. Now you have to go to the, yes. Just do the other screen. Yeah, open a new book. Like all these, open. Stransky's. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor Kaufman.
Mayor votes yes on the call for the question.
Councilmember Coombs, we need your vote. The motion passes 7 yes, 4 no from Councilmember Medina, Marcano, Coombs, and Murillo to call for the question on the ordinance.
Motion before us is the adoption of item number 11H. Call for the question.
The motion passes with, and actually, Mayor, you can make or break this tie.
Mayor votes yes on item number 4H.
No, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Okay.
Yours went to no instead of abstain. I'm sorry, we're having some technical issues right here. So we have
6-4.
yes, 6 yes, 4 no from Councilmember Medina, Marcano, Coombs, and Murillo. So the motion passes for ordinance 2022-37.
Clerk, now read the title to item.
Point of order, Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
I tried to make this before, but we had a pause to the question. Can I just ask that the record accurately reflect the motion I made? It was listed as simply table in the e-scribe code, and the motion was actually continue to the next regular council meeting, pending a fiscal analysis signed off by all relevant departments. So can that please be accurate?
That will be relayed in the minutes and in e-scribe. Councilmember Coombs.
Will clerk now please read the title to item number 18A.
Item 18A is consideration to approve an agreement between the City of Aurora, Colorado and the Fraternal Order of Police for the years 2023 and 2024.
Brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jason Batchelor, Deputy City Manager. So this is the Fraternal Order of Police contract. The Fraternal Order of Police is the recognized bargaining unit for the police department. They represent ranks of police officer 4 through captain. And this contract is a 2-year contract covering years 2023, 2024, and represents some significant pay increases for the members of the bargaining unit. It equates to approximately 11% over the 2 years for that contract. It also represents the inclusion of retiree health, the elimination of 1 step so that officers get to the top paying step 1 year quicker. And it also includes a pilot program related to overtime for lieutenants and captains. With that, I'll take any questions that council may have.
Questions to staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Motion to approve 18A.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by
Medina.
Second by Councilmember Medina to approve item number 18A. Discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 18A. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman.
Mayor votes yes.
The motion passes to approve item 18A.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 18B.
Item 18B is consideration to approve an agreement between the City of Aurora, Colorado and the International Association of Firefighters for the years 2023-2024.
Brief presentation by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jason Batchelor again. This is the collective bargaining agreement with the International Association of Firefighters Local 1290, the recognized bargaining unit for firefighters. They represent the ranks of firefighter 4 through captain. And this contract also is a 2-year contract covering the years 2023 and 2024. It also represents a significant increase in pay for our firefighters, also again approximately 11% over the 2 years of the contract, and also includes an increase in pay for paramedic certification, and includes some updates to the grievance process at the request of the city. If members of the bargaining unit have questions, we're starting that lower in the chain of command before it gets to the fire chief. With that, I can take any questions that council may have.
Questions of staff? Seeing none, motion is in order.
Mayor, motion to approve 18B.
Moved by Councilmember Gardner, seconded by? Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to approve item number 18B. Discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 18B. Call for the question.
Mayor Kaufman,
Mayor votes yes.
Councilmember, thank you. The motion passes to approve item 18B.
Reports. I held 2 town hall meetings at the Martin Luther King Library last Saturday. The first one was in English, the second one was in Spanish. Let's see, Councilmember Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a Federal, State, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee report. The state's interim committees are meeting now, and we're watching for any potential impacts to the city for next year. Later this month, we will begin reaching out to departments for their state and federal legislative priorities to begin planning for next year. Our earmark requests are still moving through the process. The House bill is expected to move next week, and both of our projects for Aurora Water and the MLK Library are included. Our senators have submitted both projects as well to the Senate Appropriations Committee, but that committee has not yet begun marking up their bill. The Senate has not shared a firm timeline, but it's expected they will begin their work next week. And that's all I have to report, Mayor.
Councilmember Gardner.
No report.
Councilmember Jurenski.
Yeah, I would just like to first say that our fire chief, Chief Gray, his last day of service with the city of Aurora is this Friday, and we certainly wish him well and thank him for his service. And on to his next venture. And then I would like to remind everybody that this Saturday is the first responders event for Aurora, and we are honoring police, fire, and Aurora 911 dispatchers. It's from noon to 4 right here at the AMC on the Great Lawn. And this is a family-friendly kiddo event, so bring your kids, bring your whole family, and come out.
Councilmember Zvonik.
Thank you, Mayor. This past week, I had a chance to join the mayor with a group of business owners along the Havana Business Improvement District to talk about crime that they're facing in their businesses, specifically retail theft. There is no question that retail theft is impacting businesses of all sizes across our city, and I will begin working with my colleagues on the Public Safety Committee as well as leadership in the Aurora Police Department to bring forward a plan to address retail theft as it continues to create just a huge challenge for far too many businesses across our city.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a reminder for everyone, my July town hall is canceled, so I hope you take that time to enjoy the rest of your summer break for those who are on break. And then just another reminder that the 7/20 Aurora Theater Shooting Memorial is coming up next week. We heard from the CEO of the 7/20 Memorial last council meeting, and she's amazing. She does a really great job of organizing the event, and it starts on the 19th, the evening before, and there's, it's just full of meaning in this community. So if y'all have an opportunity to go to that and just be in community in the 10th year anniversary of that tragedy. There's also a number of other events that are happening. There'll be, on the Saturday, there'll be a 5K race, reflection ceremony, and community event that I believe many of us will be in attendance. One specifically, well, I think all of them will be around the Aurora campus, Municipal Center campus. So just be on the lookout if you're looking for a space to celebrate, to reflect, to heal, be in community. I highly encourage you to join those events. And then I was just reminded that I need to renew my membership for the Aurora chapter of the NAACP. So if you guys are members or want to learn more about the work that they do to advance equity and civil rights in Aurora, please feel free to reach out. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Sundberg.
Thank you, sir. A lot of fun, innovative things continue to happen in Ward 2. A minor league baseball team has expressed some interest in being out there, but I'm not at liberty to give you much information on that. Meeting with Elon Musk's Boring Company to learn about the technology of creating tunnels, which could be south of DIA. I have a 2-topic Ward 2 meeting, July 21st, co-hosted by Danielle Jurinsky, Councilwoman. 2 topics include the financial state of our fine city by Greg Hayes, who's always a great presenter, and where is the shopping in Ward 2? We're going to hear some whys and why nots on that topic, as well as certain reasons why it's held up, like Mile High Flood District acting at a glacier's pace. I'm not sure who serves on that board, but that's what's going on. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Medina.
No report.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to let y'all know that the third family safety, oh, maybe I just want to, apologies. There we go. I want to let y'all know that the third family safety check should be happening this coming Saturday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 2888 South Heather Gardens Way. So this is a program that I helped craft with our Community Relations Division with APD. This is where you can go to get steering wheel locks, car seat installations, drug disposal bags, and other things of that nature to provide material support to our families. And these are all being hosted in areas that have been a high target for motor vehicle thefts. So please, attend this, get some food, drinks, get to meet some of our officers. There are activities for the kids as well. And most importantly, get your cars secure. Our next Ward 4 meeting is going to be this Thursday, the 14th at 6:30 p.m. at Colorado Early Colleges, and our speaker is going to be Chief Oates. So this should be a really, really informative meeting, and I hope to see you all there. Have a great day, rest of your week.
Councilmember Coombs.
Thank you, Mayor. My town for this month is July 19th at the Central Rec Center, and it will be a hybrid meeting, so you can also join virtually. We will be talking about broadband infrastructure and services and the opportunities available in the bipartisan infrastructure law for infrastructure in the city. And then for Dr. Cog, we had a board work session this last week. We continued to discuss the impact of the greenhouse gas legislation at the state level, greenhouse gas reduction requirements, which will likely be impacting some of our projects. And I will have some more updates after meeting with staff. And finally, I just wanted to highlight that this is the second time that we have passed an ordinance without a fiscal impact, out of a sense of vengeance. And last time we did that, the estimated cost is around $2.5 million a year, plus some additional millions of dollars up front. So I guess we will find out how much it's going to cost us to not understand what we're passing and how much it will cost.
Thank you, Mayor. We had E470 Roadway Committee last week, and we were reviewing the road widening project from I-70 to 56th Avenue. Costs have escalated, of course, with supply chain issues and inflation. And also reviewed the central maintenance facility, same thing. I think costs went up from $26 million cost for the project up to $36 million. So that was pretty significant. My town hall is on Wednesday, July 20th from 6 to 8 o'clock at Capstick, which is the public safety training facility. Topics will be the budget, and then I'm also having a guest presentation from AmeriCorps. So if you have kids that might want to join AmeriCorps, it's a great program, come learn about it. And then I do my general updates. And just, this is for Councilmember Sundberg. The shopping is in Ward 6.
Ooh. Meeting adjourned.